Thank you so very much, everyone, for being here today to participate in a webinar. I'm so excited that we're here today in partnership. I'm Karen Ng from National ACE, and we have a lot of partnerships today. The first one is National ACE, AARP, FPAC, and EXIM, and everyone's going to have a moment to speak. So with that, let's start off with Chiling Tong, who is the CEO and President of National ACE.
Karen, thank you so much for your introduction and thank you so much for your leadership. I want to thank all of you for being a part of a dialogue with Export-Import Bank as a part of our International Business Development webinar series. Thank to you for Michael Jackson of Export-Import Bank and Brad Baudia of the Federation of Philippine of American Chamber of Commerce for joining us in hosting this event. Since the pandemic, National ACE has been so committed and to work with the administration and the Congress to mobilizing resources to advocate and provide assistance to Asian American and Pacific Islander entrepreneurs in the United States, such as extend the PPP forgiveness period. Most recently, we joined with other minority organizations like Hispanic Chamber, Black Chamber, and to call on Congress to mobilize 10 billion in grants, loans, and technical assistance directly for minority small business and nonprofits. Today, many small business and nonprofit organizations are struggling to survive during this pandemic. And we would like to hold this informative, interactive educational webinar to provide AAPI business access to latest COVID-19 resources and the support programs, as well as access to international business, financial opportunity, and other options. I want to especially thank all the speakers for joining us for this event. And thank you for your time. I know the demand of your time during this pandemic, but thank you for your commitment to the AAPI community. And Michael, Tony, and Grace, I really appreciate your participation. And the listener, and also I want to introduce Jenny Lowe and George Moy. They're the one who behind the scene to put this event together. Thank you. Now, I would like to take this opportunity to introduce Grace Cavalo-Rustil, Associate State Director for Multicultural Outreach at AARP. Grace is not a stranger to our community. As a matter of fact, she is truly a role model. She has been received AAPI Corporate Achievement Award at OCA, and she has been deeply engaged with multicultural community. Grace, thank you for your work.
Thank you so much for a warm introduction and good afternoon to everyone. We also would like to say thank you for your leadership. You are always working to bring different sectors of communities together for critical dialogue to move all communities forward. And thank you to ACE and your affiliates for your leadership in our communities, especially during this devastating financial crisis. AARP is so pleased to be able to support and partner with ACE to assist, as we can, to help AAPI small businesses, which we all know are key economic engines for our communities. In 2018, 25.8% of new businesses were started by people 55 to 64 years old. As a result of COVID-19, 18% of older entrepreneurs of small businesses have been impacted. And this is why AARP is involved, to support small businesses, because we know that many small business owners are over the age of 50 and need resources and support in these unprecedented times. So, what needs to be done now? How can we collectively support small businesses? There's a need for organizations and government, nationally and locally, to develop plans, strategies to help small business recover. Additionally, existing and new businesses need new support and resources. This includes factoring for the need of the new businesses and types of businesses that will boom as we recover in the wake of this pandemic. So, for example, will businesses transition from brick and mortar setup to a home base or online? And our support and resources in place that could help businesses with that transition? And just as importantly, we need to be in communication with small businesses and organizations and chambers that represents them, so we can learn what small business owners need. And that is just what AARP is working on. We are listening, we are learning, and we are responding. AARP and public-private strategies hosted a listening tour that actually launched in July, that included participation by the national organizations, the Main Street America, Small Business Development Centers, Women Business Development Centers, and the United States Hispanic Chamber. In November, AARP will have a small business platform available as well. So in closing, AARP is a national organization, but we have state offices nationwide. So through our ACE partnership, we would like to connect the local chambers to our AARP state offices so that we can help you and you as well can help us. So now I want to hear and learn from all of our distinguished panelists. So thank you so much to everyone.
Thank you, Grace. AARP has been so supportive of the AAPI community, and so we thank you so very much for everything that you are doing to help us become better business owners, better community organizations, and better people. So thank you so very much. With that being said, I'd like to introduce Brad Baldia from FPAC. He's in Philadelphia right now, as you can tell from his wonderful background.
Thank you. Yeah.
Brad, take it away.
Hi, thanks so much, Karen and Chilling and National ACE for this great opportunity, and of course, Michael, to share with information about EXIM Bank. So really looking forward to it. As Karen said, my name is Brad Baldia. I'm the National Executive Director of the Federation of Philippine American Chambers of Commerce. FPAC, as we call it, is a coalition of well-established Filipino American Chambers of Commerce in the United States, and we represent the business community of over 4.1 Filipino Americans in the US. And in 2021, we'll be proudly celebrating our 25th anniversary. Building upon its binational Filipino American platform, the Federation has been expanding its reach to the global stage to include all Filipino business diasporas worldwide, a vision stated by our dynamic national president, Marie Cunning, during FPAC's November 2017 Binational Trade and Business Conference in Arizona. The Federation, since its founding, has been a strong advocate for business ownership among Filipino Americans and provides a trusted network of trade and commerce resources for its member chambers. Among our most senior members are the Filipino Chamber of Commerce of Hawaii since 1956, the San Francisco Philippine American Chamber of Commerce, founded in 1973, and our newest chambers include Mexico, Australia, and we're continuing to aggressively grow our footprint in the US and globally. FPAC's counterpart is in the Philippines, the Philippine Chamber of Commerce and Industry, or PCCI, and the Philippines USA Economic and Business Council, or PUBC. They provide access and opportunities for our Philippine-based chamber chapters with US-based companies. Through a memorandum of agreement with these twin powerhouse organizations, FPAC fosters ongoing and impactful business matching, collaboration, and and trade missions. We're extremely proud to be an MOU partner with National ACE, and we appreciate all the amazing work that Karen Sheeling and the whole National ACE team does to support and strengthen API chambers across the country. In addition, FPAC's recently signed a strategic alliance memorandum with the U.S. Small Business Administration. One of our current major initiatives is our Pueblo Filipino project in Mexico. Mexico has more than a 450-year history with the Philippines. This Pueblo Filipino project will include a high-end luxury resort and casino, a golf course, and other recreational activities, Filipino businesses, and senior housing. Next, I would like to introduce Dr. Tony Ogilvie, who is one of FPAC's board members, as well as the president of one of our chambers in Seattle, Washington, to talk about FPAC's Binational International Trade and Business Conference. Dr. Ogilvie?
Thank you very much, Brad, and good day to all of you. And again, like everyone else, I got to thank both ACE and FPAC to allow time, for us to talk about our conference that was originally scheduled for November 2021, but because of certain uncertainties, we are going to be postponing it to the second quarter of 2022. Let me just start by saying that Seattle was selected as a site by FPAC's International Trade Conference Committee in 2019. And upon being selected, our local planning committee, which is primarily our board members, believe that we should take advantage of Seattle's numerous global iconic companies such as Microsoft, Amazon, Boeing, Costco, T-Mobile, Expedia, not to mention many others that use technology, both established and startups that are using technology to advance their business. We also realize, because this is traditionally a Philippine-USA trade conference, but we also realize that other countries are also experiencing the same global phenomenon, advancing technology for the purposes of convenience and sustainability. And in our planning and development, we have receiving word that certainly we're going to be getting participants from Mexico, Canada, Japan, Hong Kong, and other countries. Thus, we chose for our theme, convergence, technology, convenience, and sustainability. Again, to let you know, we have already started inviting major speakers and presenters from business, government, and professional associations in global and local transportation, communication, the built environment, water and waste management, software development, as well as in artificial, smart, and super intelligence. So in addition to these major presenters, our conference will be having plenary sessions and dozens of workshop presentations that will also include social networking to allow participants to meet and explore possible partnerships and international trade opportunities. And our B2B will be based on B2B technology so that we can really get people to know each other, interact. And in the world of international trade, establishing personal relations, as we all know, is very critical. Just to let you know, we will be including workshops for startup companies as well as entrepreneurs to facilitate small and medium sized enterprises to get more engaged in international trade. So as we are building this international trade conference that we think is going to be a big hit, we would like to invite any of the representatives from the different companies and organizations. Hey, if you want to join as a speaker, as a sponsor, as a donor, or just sending your whole team to register, please contact us, through FPAC. So we look forward to seeing everyone in again, maybe in April or May 2022, and we want you to know it'll be a pretty fun and exciting conference. So again, thank you very much, Brad.
I'm going to take it over. Thank you, Dr. Ogilvie and Brad from FPAC for the updates. And that sounds like a fun conference. So I'm sure more information will be coming. George put in the chat the link to the FPAC for your information. In addition to the fact, we have a special opportunity to have one-on-one with Michael K. Jackson today. So when you do listen to his presentation, if you do have questions, it would be awesome if you could chat some questions to us, and then I'll try and get to them as many as possible. There's also the opportunity to look everybody up on LinkedIn and make sure that you're connected, because the world is getting smaller every day since we're all seeing each other on Zoom. So with that being said, I'm going to talk a little bit about EXIM because I think it's the best kept secret for business owners that has been around for quite some time. So especially today with the global economy, it pays to pay attention to the Export-Import Bank. With that being said, let me introduce Michael K. Jackson, who is a business development specialist, minority and women-owned business outreach group in the Office of Small Business. There you go.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you. And special thank you to both FPAC and ACE for working with EXIM Bank to actually put this event on. And we've done a lot of work in the past, and I'm certainly looking forward to working with both groups as we go forward. And thank you to the audience for taking time out of your busy schedules today to join us on this call. So as I mentioned, today I'll just be providing an overview of EXIM Bank, who we are, what we do, and how we can assist small businesses like yourselves in the event that you're not already familiar with us. So EXIM Bank is an actual federal government agency. For those of you who are not that familiar with us, we say that although we have bank in our name, we're actually, and thank you, George, for plugging in the website in the chat. We are, in essence, a federal government agency, independent agency, and I always say, although we have bank in our name, we're not a bank, and you'll see why when I explain in a second. We established over 80 years ago, headquartered in Washington, D.C., where I sit, and we have 12 regional export centers across the country that are co-located with U.S. export assistance centers. And our mission, just quite succinctly, is to create and sustain jobs by increasing U.S. export sales. So some of you who are already doing international business may already be familiar with this statistic. So 95% of the world's opportunities are actually overseas. The US only represents 5% of global population. So if you're only focusing on the domestic marketplace, we always say you're leaving most of the pie on the table, and we want you to get the whole pie. You may or may not realize that only 1% of US companies actually export. And the large part of that is fear of the unknown. It's the risks associated with conducting international trade, yes, are higher than doing domestic business, but that's why EXIM exists. We actually take the fear out of exporting for you as a small business owner. So you might have asked yourself these questions, or are currently asking yourself these questions in this market. Should I enter this new market? I hear all this good stuff about doing business overseas, but should I really enter that new market? When and will I get paid? How will I get the cash to make the product if I'm a manufacturer? And also, okay, I've made the big sale, and my buyer wants to do business with me, but they need financing. EXIM Bank has solutions for all of these questions. So our financing makes the difference in a number of ways. Number one, we minimize risk, and we minimize risk for you, the small business owner, as well as we minimize risk for the lender if there's a lender involved in a transaction. And I'll explain a little bit more about that in a second. We also level the playing field. So there are over 100 EXIM Bank equivalents across the globe. We call them export credit agencies. So we're the official export credit agency of America. And there are clones of us, if you will, across the globe that are aggressively providing support to their quote unquote national champions. So what US EXIM does is come in and actually level that playing field such that you as a small business can compete on the merits of your product or service, and not necessarily have to worry about providing a sweetheart financing deal to that foreign customer. We also supplement commercial financing. So we always say that we only get involved in a transaction when the private sector is either unwilling or unable to. We work with the private sector hand in hand to actually create solutions for you. And we support a variety of different industries, as you see here. Everything from manufacturing to services to everything in between. As you'll see, industries that we here in the US are very competitive in. And just to note that we have specialized offices within EXIM that focuses on particular industry verticals. So for example, we have an office down in Houston that focuses obviously on the oil and gas industry. And then we have our transportation division, as well as our project finance division that focus on the larger deals, the aircraft deals, the power generation deals. We have a specialist that focuses on renewable energy. So as you can see here, it really runs the gamut. Now, our financing covers the spectrum from pre-export financing with our working capital guarantees, all the way over to the other end of the spectrum with our post-export financing, which is largely executed through our export credit insurance. These are the two main programs for small businesses. We do provide commercial guarantees and in very few instances, direct loans, but those are when we're talking about multi-$100 million deals. So we're talking about small business. We're focusing on the working capital guarantee and the trade credit insurance. So with our working capital guarantee, this really provides funds for you, the small business exporter, to fulfill those export orders. You heard me say earlier that we minimize risk both for the lender, if there's a lender involved, and the exporter. Well, this is an instance where we're minimizing risk for the lender. We're providing the lender up to a 90% guarantee that basically says, should you, the small business owner, default on this export loan, then we, EXIM Bank, is coming in and guaranteeing them repayment up to 90%. So what that effectively does is really remove most of the risk out of the equation for the bank. And it really provides an incentive to banks to, at least in theory anyway, to lend more money to small businesses like you that want to actually explore doing business overseas. Now, let's talk about our receivables insurance. It's popularly known as export credit insurance. It does a number of things. So it really, this is where we're mitigating risk for you, the small business exporter now. Risk protection, which we talked about early on, is really the impediment that holds businesses, particularly small businesses, back from doing business globally. Too much risk involved in the equation. Well, the export credit insurance really minimizes that risk of doing business internationally. So we protect you up to 95% on either commercial risks. So if you are doing business, say in a politically solid country, but say if your buyer overseas goes bankrupt, can't pay you, 95% of that transaction is covered. Or say that you might be doing business with a solid company overseas. You might be doing business with a multinational corporation, but you're doing business in, as I call it, a rough neck of the woods around the globe. Something happens politically, some upheaval, and you can't get paid. EXIM Bank, again, in that instance, protects you up to 95%. So it really minimizes the risk for you to do business overseas. Another benefit of the export credit insurance, it allows you to safely extend credit terms, open account credit terms to your foreign buyers. So I always say that, in far too many instances, U.S. small businesses lose export opportunities because they're either saying, no, I want my cash up front, pay me up front, or they're demanding that the international buyer, say, use a letter of credit, which is an international payment instrument that comes at a cost to that foreign buyer. I always say cash is king. So if you can get your cash up front, absolutely get it. However, in those competitive situations when you're competing against businesses overseas for a foreign piece of business, allowing yourself to extend 30, 60, 90 day credit terms and beyond makes you much more competitive. And that's what EXIM's export credit insurance does for you. Allows you to safely extend those credit terms to those foreign buyers so that you can actually win that business. Because oftentimes they're saying, oh, I like you personally, I like your product or your service, Mr. or Miss US exporter, want to do business with you, but your German competitor is offering me 60-day terms, right? In those instances, instead of losing that business, you can actually win that business by using EXIM Bank credit insurance. And a last benefit of the credit insurance is really, it's another form of access to capital as well. Say if you couldn't get a line of credit using EXIM's working capital guarantee, well, you can tap your export receivables, which is your receivables are, is one of the largest assets on your balance sheet as a business. And banks typically don't like lending against foreign receivables. However, when those foreign receivables are backed by EXIM's credit insurance, then it's almost like magic. The bank now sees those receivables at the same way they look at domestic receivables, allowing you to borrow against those receivables, getting the access to that capital so that you can go after more international business. So you can grow your business, and in effect, we can grow the US economy. And lastly, buyer financing, which we call it, this comes in the form of our medium and long-term guarantees. Won't spend too much time on this, but just note that if you are a manufacturer with a buyer overseas that wants to buy your capital goods, then there's a solution that helps them get financing to buy your equipment, and you don't have to carry that financing on your books. Now, I want to talk a little bit more about our export credit insurance. It is by far the bulk of what we do at EXIM Bank. There are various types of credit insurance programs and policies, but I want to highlight one particular policy and it's called the Express policy. That's specifically for small businesses like yourselves. And the way it works, because you might have, you might have been asking yourself a question. Well, I like what you're saying about the credit insurance. How does it work? What's the pricing? Well, the way it works is, I draw your attention to this chart. Go all the way over to the right under Class 3 Private, and you have that third column there that says, or that third row rather, that says 1 to 60 days. So if you're offering up to 60-day terms to your foreign buyer, the cost is 65 cents per $100 of the transaction. So to give an example, to use round numbers, say if you have a $10,000 invoice, the premium would be $65 for that invoice. So I wish we were together in a room, because I always see eyes light up and get brighter when I say this, because for the amount of protection that you're getting, the cost is really minimal. It's really a no-brainer in terms of the amount of protection that you're getting. I always say, would you prefer to lose that entire $10,000 or just your $65 premium? Because what happens if something should happen politically or commercially, you submit a claim to EXIM Bank, and on that $10,000 invoice, EXIM Bank is paying you back $9,500 of that. 95%. And then, we go after that foreign buyer. You don't even have to worry about collecting. We do all the collection efforts. So it's really, a beneficial tool to use when you're doing business overseas. So there are just a number of restrictions that I want to highlight for you. Not all of them apply to small businesses, so I'll just touch on a few of them. We do have a restriction against sales of military or defense-related products or sales to foreign military. And that's including, unfortunately, that's including even our defense partners, like in NATO countries and so forth. Once it's military, there's a restriction against sales of those products. Now, great news is there are a number of exceptions to that rule. So if the product is dual use, where it has both military and civilian applications, we could take a look at that. Also, If the product is for either drug interdiction or humanitarian purposes, we could take a look at that as well. But a general rule of thumb is no sales to foreign military or sales of military products. We do have a U.S. content policy in place, standard term, which covers the two main programs I talked about, the working capital guarantee and the export credit insurance. There's a 50% U.S. content requirement in place. So what that means, if we're talking about tangible goods products, the production cost of those of the item must amount to 50% content. And if we're talking about services, because many of you might be, service-oriented professional services companies, then the stipulation would be that if you're performing a service overseas, then the workers must be US-based workers. So for example, if you're doing a project in the Philippines, for example, and you may have folks on the ground in the Philippines, to work with EXIM Bank in this instance, in terms of to meet that 50% US content, the workers must originate in the United States. It must be US based, and then go to the Philippines to actually implement that project, just as an example. And then restricted countries. So we have something called the country limitation schedule. We affectionately call that the CLS, and that's really effectively EXIM's Bible, if you will. EXIM is open for business in over 150 odd plus countries, and the CLS determines what countries we're open in and under what conditions, whether we're open for private sector and public sector, or either or whether we're open on short term, which is up to 12 months, or medium or longer term. Just here, just a few instances that you would call EXIM Bank. So if you have a foreign buyer that wants credit terms, that's an instance to give us a call. If you're exporting routinely right now, and your growth in foreign sales is limited because of that fear, the risk of non-payment, then that's definitely a reason to call us. Won't go through all of these. Just one more. If you're losing export opportunities because you will only accept cash in advance or letter of credit, absolutely, definitely give us a call. And there's some additional resources that I want to bring your attention to. EXIM Bank is a relatively teeny tiny agency in the grand scope of the federal government. Just to illustrate, we only have maybe roughly 500 or so employees, so we're really small. So we rely heavily on our resource partners to do what we do. We have a network of export credit insurance brokers that really partner with us to help you understand the different types of policies, help you with your documentation, really do a lot of the hand-holding when it comes to that export credit insurance. And then we have our regional export promotion program members. That's a mouthful. And then our rep members, that includes, SBDCs, World Trade Centers, state and local economic development organizations throughout the country that have relationships with small businesses, in their regions, in their communities, and they act as basically an extension of EXIM Bank. And then we have our delegated authority lenders, where you heard me talk about the working capital guarantee program. That's 99% of our working capital guarantee loans are executed through our delegated authority lenders. So, you would interface with those banks to actually do the loan. So we rely heavily on our delegated lenders. And then finally, our U.S. Export Assistance Center. So you heard me mention at the top that we have 12 regional export centers throughout the country. Most of them are co-located with in U.S. Export Assistance Centers, or we affectionately call USIACs, that also house the SBA and the U.S. Department of Commerce, specifically the U.S. Commercial Service. And all three agencies kind of work together hand in hand to provide a holistic solution for you, the small business exporter. Each agency has their particular focus. I'm happy to answer questions now.
You got it. I'm on it, just to let you know. So the first question we have is, does the recycling business work? Does EXIM work with the recycling business?
We sure do. We sure do. It really comes down to, though, more specifically, if you're if the whatever you're recycling, whatever metals or what have you, you're recycling, if they're U.S. based, it goes back to that content policy that I talked about, because the stipulation is, again, 50% U.S. content, and also, I might not have mentioned this, but another stipulation is that the product must be manufactured here and shipped from here. Now, it could include, again, because we all know, global value chains, right? So stuff is coming from everywhere into our manufacturing processes. But as long as it's shipped from here and at least 50% of that content is US, and in this case, the recycled content, then yeah, it's definitely a good to go.
So what is the minimal invoice for the express policy?
Great question. EXIM has no minimum or maximum amount. We've done, deals. I used to have a colleague that would tell a story that I haven't seen this, but there was a deal for $800 at one point historically. I think that's a story around EXIM Bank, that we've done a deal as small as $800. So we always say no minimum or maximum. And oftentimes, that's important. Let me pause there for a second, because oftentimes, we deal with a lot of small businesses, and oftentimes small businesses think that somehow, I'm too small to, go global. I'm too small to export. No, you're not. If you are successfully offering your products and services here in the domestic market, next natural progression would be to sell your services, sell your products overseas.
The other question I had was, when do you apply for the policies? Do you have to get the contract, or you're starting to think about it? I know that people don't want to spend the money unless it's a done deal.
Yep. No, great question. You want to get us involved early on, because if you have a prospect overseas that you're doing business with or thinking about entering into a contract with, that would be the time that you want to bring that to us. Because with the express policy, we call it a named buyer policy, where you just give us the names of the companies that you are looking at doing business with, and we would actually take on the responsibility of doing a credit check on them and vetting them. And so you want to get us involved early. Now, not too early where you're just you're just kind of prospecting the globe to see where the opportunities are. And that goes to my point, if I may, about how the three agencies kind of work together, because our sister agency, U.S. Commercial Service, Department of Commerce, they're the ones that really assist companies with finding buyers and distributors overseas, finding what markets are great for what particular product. So we, if it's early on, you're working with the commercial service, and then when you have an actual deal or prospective deal, that's when you want to involve EXIM.
Excellent. So are the local offices open?
EXIM Bank is fully open, but much like the rest of the country and the globe, everybody's virtual, but we're all working.
Okay, and then responsive, right? So if we kind of reach out and get, there you go.
And I would state this too, that anybody on this call, if you have any questions that come to your mind afterwards, please reach out to me directly, and I'm the point of contact at EXIM Bank headquarters to work with women, minority, and veteran-owned businesses. So obviously the Asian American Pacific Island business community, that's my adopted community. So if y'all have questions at all, feel free to reach out to me directly.
So another question that came in is, if you consult on deals, can financing work if the buyer and seller form a joint venture?
Another great question. So the answer to that one is no. So there must be an arm's length. It must be an arm's length transaction. So you can't sell to yourself, basically, in effect. So the buyer that you're selling to overseas, you cannot have a legal business relationship. You can't be selling to a subsidiary or, a joint venture partner in this case. Has to be a completely separate entity.
Wonderful, wonderful. There's another question. Can EXIM support the export of consulting services of single member LLCs?
Absolutely, absolutely. Just did a webinar a week or so ago, and had the professional services, IT consulting, cybersecurity. We get a lot of those. Accounting, legal services. Absolutely, absolutely.
Wonderful. Some more. Are there any countries that are not covered by EXIM?
Yeah, so that goes back to that country limitation schedule. There are countries that for political congressional reasons we are forbidden to support, i.e. countries like North Korea, the usual suspects, North Korea, Cuba, Syria, Iran, for example. And then there are countries that for congressional political reasons we temporarily restrict. So right now there's a restriction on Russia since the incursion into Crimea some years ago. So yeah, there are countries that were completely closed in, but that country limitation schedule, again, we're open in over 150 countries around the globe, and that country limitation schedule, if you go to our website, exim.gov, and you just put in CLS, it'll come up and it'll show you under what conditions we're open in all the countries that we're open in around the world.
Excellent. So let's flip it just a little bit. We've been talking a lot about exporting.
Mm-hmm.
What about importing? What are those types of services?
Yes, I usually use a famous line up front, and I don't think I said it today, but I always say that our name is Export Import Bank, but we don't use our middle name because the EXIM Bank's sole purpose is to assist U.S. companies to export out of the United States. So we do not support imports into the United States. I always say the types of imports that we do support, however, are imports into foreign countries, which are effectively U.S. exports.
So you don't use your middle name or your last name is what you're saying.
Basically. That's why our logo just says EXIM, simply EXIM.
So I'm going to give you the last words of closing out the question and answers. I don't see any more. I think we brought you and we challenged you on quite a few of them. So
yes.
You want to close this out, and then I'll close the rest of the webinar off.
Sure. Well, just finally, I just want to say a big thank you to FPAC and ACE for working with us and all of my co-presenters today, and just thanking everybody that joined in today, and all those who will be, I don't know if we're recording. I think we're recording. All those who may view this later. I just thank y'all for your time. Finally, if there are any questions, oftentimes what happens is, we close down the webinar, and then, you think of a question afterwards. Oh man, I forgot to ask that question. Please feel free to reach out to me. I don't know if we can make my contact info available, but I'll give it to you all again. Email michael.jackson@exim.gov. Telephone number 202-565-3479. Please feel free to reach out to me with any questions, or if you're in the midst of doing a deal right now, I'm happy to help you. So I'm at your service.
So Michael, thank you so very much for your presentation that introduces EXIM for those who are not familiar, but also some beneficial information for those who do know your agency. And I just wanted to let you guys know, even though I'm a professional services agency, or company, I've utilized the receivables insurance and the working capital guarantee products. So you don't need to have the product, and it's the minimal cost for something, because as a small business owner, you want to minimize your risk. And then if you want to do business outside of the US, you want to minimize your risks even more and have the tools in place that are available to you at little or no cost. And like you said, with your partnerships with, the Department of Commerce, MBDA, a lot of those in conjunction are pretty good resources on if you should make the decision to go overseas or not.
Absolutely.
I know EXIM has a great reputation, And like I said at the beginning, it's one of the best kept agencies, secret agencies in the U.S. system, in my opinion.
And we want to change that. That's why, you know, I do stuff like this to let us not be the best kept secret anymore.
So again, thank you. Thank you to Grace from ARP, Brad Baldia and Dr. Tony Ogilvy from FPAC, Chiling and Emily from ACE, Janie and George Moy for the organizations. Everyone come back on the camera to say goodbye. And perhaps we can take a quick little picture of our panelists. And I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I hope you got something informational out of it. I think it was a very, very informative and enlightening webinar with some great updates.